Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
Spicy. Look, man, we love your game. We gave you a shot to be the guy. But I think we found out what's what. And you are an integral part of what we're doing moving forward. But we're going to need somebody else to be the captain of this ship. It is what it is, man. Hey, look, I was thinking of, something provocative to say, something spicy to call Siakam. And I was like, yo, small sack Siakam. And then I was like, nah, man, that's not only is that vulgar alchemy, but it's not correct, right? Because you watched Siakam struggle in these playoffs. It wasn't about effort. It wasn't about will, courage, or motor, or even basketball IQ. It was about skill. He's lacking skill. His bag isn't big enough, right? And so, first off, I want to say that let's give Boston some credit. Jaylen Brown, did he make an all-defensive team? If he didn't, it's always the year after, right? Everybody is acknowledging Jaylen Brown as a lockdown defender. He's one of the better wing defenders in the league. He may not have got that acknowledgement in the awards this year. Next year, he'll be one, right? So I want to state Boston's defense was tremendous. Jaylen Brown gets a ton of credit. But ultimately, I think what we learned and what the Toronto Raptors learned is Siakam isn't a number one option. Now, they paid him like he was a number one option, and you saw him struggle. And I don't want to diss him. I still like Siakam as a player. I really do. I think he is a Sean Marion caliber player, right? He is ideally your third option on offense. Defensively, he's versatile, he's long, right? And he's high motor, he's an effort guy, and then he shoots it good enough. He didn't shoot it well enough against the Celtics, right? But well enough that like he can't be ignored in the corners and he can space the floor a little bit. So I think he's that caliber player, and there's no shame in that. Look, Sean Marion is arguably a Hall of Famer, and he's a star player. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how Siakam was paid like a number one and was supposed to be the heir apparent to Kawhi Leonard. Now, here's the thing. When I watch Siakam, there is still something foreign to the way he moves out there and does things. He's essentially, he's not a natural ball player, if that makes sense. And for instance, I'll use the rookie, the young kid for Boston, Williams. Is it Robert Williams? Their center, their athletic center. He's very raw, right? He's very inexperienced, but he's a natural. You see him move and you see him do things out there and you're like, yo, he's just a natural ball player. And where Siakam, it's not so natural. There's something a little bit off about the way he does things. And in a way it helps him, right? He's kind of awkward. And then as far as skill set goes, and back to him, his bag not being big enough, he really doesn't have any moves. He doesn't have a go-to move. He doesn't have a whole lot of skill. He's very reliant on his physical attributes. And his physical attributes are tremendous. He's long, he's fast, and he has great hip bend. You know, he plays very low for a guy who's like 6'10", and that's his advantage, that long first step, being low, and he has the spin move, right? But part of the reason why I think he hasn't been able to develop into an off-the-dribble shooter is his shot suspect anyway, but that very hip bend, if you watch him, he's always bent at the hip, and it helps him defensively because he's always down. He's always ready to move laterally, right? And it also helps him when he's playing fast and moving downhill because his hips are down and he can hit you with the spin move. But the same reason that he's down in his hips all the time is the same reason why he can't really get into a pull-up jump shot, and that's what all these elite wings eventually have to have, right? And it's really essentially the same problem you see with Draymond Green. Now, I'm not comparing their games, but I'm saying it's the same issue where they don't get full torso extension. They're always down in their hip, and we always clown Draymond about the backpack shot, right? Like he looks like he's wearing a backpack. Siakam's the same way because his hips, they never fully extend and lock out, and his torso gets straight up, right? And so he doesn't have that as part of his game. And I think it became very clear that he needs to play off someone else's offense. I don't know why Nurse continued to force feed him the ball in the post at a standstill. Giving the ball to Siakam at a standstill in the half court, you're just not putting him in a position to succeed. And that's what you saw time and time again. Granted, Jaylen Brown, not the ideal opponent to attack. So I don't know why Nurse was so insistent on that. It was almost as if the organization and Nurse wants Siakam to be that lead captain guy so bad that they forced it, and it's just not what it is. And again, I'm not dissing him, but it is what it is, right? Now, moving forward, what I would suggest he do is, because of that hip bend issue, that's a mechanical thing. I don't think you can really change that. He's not going to be a guy that's going to pull up off the dribble. He's not going to be able to hang dribble into jump shots and create his own shot from the perimeter. So if I were him, I would focus on his post game, because that's where his strength lies, right? His low hip, and he has that spin move. I would work on being able to turn and go over either shoulder, and then a float game. Again, Sean Marion, my comparison. Sean Marion had some of the craziest, more awkward floaters you've ever seen, but he was very adept at getting that shot off, that little pogo stick flip shot. Antoine Jameson is another player with a similar skill set. That's what I think Siakam should just double down on as far as becoming an offensive player. He's not going to be a clear out, let me create for you type of guy, and then he can continue to shoot the corner three ball. If anything, talking about that Boston scenario, I saw a stat where he shot like the worst 3-point percentage ever, like 12% or something like that. That's where you really credit Boston. I think that was because of Boston's defense and the way they closed out and the way they were attached to him. I don't think that's representative of him shooting. He's a much better shooter than that, but let the rumors begin. Let the rumors begin. It's already started. That's what's going to happen. As these teams get knocked off, everybody's going to take a look at their roster and say, well, could my team get this guy, or are they going to trade that guy? And I've already heard it. Are the Warriors going to take a shot at Siakam? And look, for me, here's the selling point to Toronto. Andrew Wiggins, the Canadian-born star. He comes home to Canada, and say what you want about Wiggins. I know a lot of people have written him off. I'm not one of them. I think he's going to, I'm going to talk more about him as this next season approaches, but I think he has more value and he's going to be better than people think, particularly for the Warriors. Now, call me crazy. I'm not so sure I would trade Wiggins for Siakam. I saw a proposed deal of this year's number 2 pick in Wiggins for Siakam. Never mind the pick. I don't know if I would trade Wiggins for Siakam straight up. I'm being honest with you here, because I think that Wiggins has more potential at 24 years old. Again, I don't think he's capped out by any means. I think he shoots the ball a little bit better. And because he can shoot off the bounce, that ceiling is a lot higher. Now, defensively, Siakam is more proven. Siakam has a higher motor, and he seems to be a better competitor. I understand that. But again, taking Wiggins out of that toxic Minnesota environment, I just don't know if I do that. I think that that's kind of a sidestep move, to be honest with you. And I think Wiggins fits alongside Draymond better than Siakam does. I do. Now, I've also heard the rumor in hindsight that when the whole Kawhi thing was going down, he tried to get Paul George to Toronto in a rumored proposed deal, Siakam for Paul George. I don't know if I necessarily buy that. I don't know how that came out, but it's out there and people are talking about it. It's interesting because Masai Ujiri, the GM, a lot of people consider him the top GM in basketball for good reason, right? It's interesting because he was very cold-hearted with the DeRozan move, right? It was a cutthroat move and everybody understood it, but it was like, damn, that's cold. And then it seemed like all of a sudden, he didn't have the ability to be cutthroat when it came to a Siakam-Paul George deal. Now, does he perhaps have a soft spot for foreign-born players, an African player? Maybe, right? But I also think that it would be difficult coming off a championship and what Siakam had just accomplished. There was too much emotional attachment to him and maybe potential, right? And so I kind of get why he wouldn't do that. But again, I don't know if that ever was proposed. As far as Toronto goes moving forward, you've got Marc Gasol, who, frankly, I think he's going to be out of the league sooner than later, just by the way the league is headed. He's just getting abused out there, and his unwillingness to be aggressive offensively, the juice is no longer worth the squeeze with Mark, right? Because he's no longer a plus defender. He just gets pulled out to the three-point line in pick and roll coverage. And then on the other end, offensively, yeah, he's a great passer and he knows where to be, but he's an unwilling shooter and an unwilling scorer. So I don't know where he goes. I had made a comment in my breakdown yesterday, like, I'm not using the mid-level on Mark. I sure am not, Now, Serge, that's a different story. Serge is coming off a very impressive series. I think a lot of contenders and teams are going to be pitching to Serge Ibaka to come and be the missing piece. And the interesting thing will be is he's been paid, right? He has a championship. So you wonder what his decision, what he'll be considering in his decision. It may not be about winning or money per se. I don't know. Fred VanVleet, someone's going to throw him the bag. Someone's going to give him 30 mil. New York. I think Majiri is too savvy to pay Fred. But again, I just got done saying that he, maybe made an emotional decision in not giving up Siakam to reportedly keep Kawhi. So maybe he feels emotionally attached to VanVleet because he's kind of a homegrown product. And again, he's a champion. He brought them their first championship. And that's what you see a lot of times when a team wins a championship, especially their first one or one in a long time. The cachet that those players hold, they tend to overvalue them. They become, they become emotionally attached to these players, just like we are with the Warriors players, right? Like Klay, you've heard the rumors here lately of, would the Warriors give Klay to Milwaukee for Giannis? And, myself included, I'm like, I don't even know, man. I don't even know if I can do that. When on paper, like you kind of got to do that if that's what was possible, right? And it's the cachet that Klay has built in being a Warrior and bringing us championships. And so there's some of that at play maybe with that Toronto roster. Let me know where y'all stand with Siakam here. One, Warriors fans, would you trade Wiggins for him? Wiggins in the pick, to me, that's just way too much. But I'm more asking like Wiggins or Siakam. I know I imagine most of you would do it because Siakam is the bigger name. He's the proven commodity. But so that's question one. And then question two, generally speaking, what do you see Siakam's best role as? Do you think he can be the number 2 guy? And I know people are going to say, well, he was the number 2 guy to Kawhi. Was he? You got Lowry and VanVleet, right? It was kind of a collective. Is he good enough to be the number 2 star? To me, he's the number 3 guy. He's a Sean Marion. He's a fill in the blanks effort energy guy. Don't give him the ball and ask him to create. Play fast, let him fill in the blanks and use that athleticism. Anyway, go Niners. I'm out, y'all.